On December 26, 1991, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics ceased to exist. 15 republics that were part of the USSR received their independence. Russia was the largest among these countries. Russian President Boris Yeltsin promised the country's population freedom, democracy, and a high standard of living for all Russian citizens. However, instead of the promised democratic values, the Russian population received poverty, hunger, lawlessness, as well as an attempted coup and a bloody war in the North Caucasus. The rating of the Russian president at the time of 1996 was only a few percent. Most of the public accused Yeltsin of failed market reforms, low living standards, usurpation of power, and the outbreak of war in Chechnya. In June 1996, presidential elections in the Russian Federation were to take place, and absolutely all political experts were confident that Yeltsin's main opponent, the leader of the Communist Party Gennady Zyuganov, would win the elections. However, the oligarchs who became rich under the current government did not want to lose the capital they earned under Yeltsin's rule, and therefore the largest Russian oligarchs began to financially support Boris Yeltsin's election campaign. Thanks to unlimited administrative resources and the media controlled by the oligarchs, in the first round of the presidential elections, Boris Yeltsin managed to gain 45% of the votes, where the current president received 53% of the votes, re-elected to his second presidential term. After Yeltsin's victory in the elections, the oligarchs who supported Yeltsin's presidential campaign took leadership positions in the new Russian government, continuing to plunder the country's population. Yeltsin's second term was remembered by the country for the enormous economic crisis of 1998. On August 17th, after the collapse of the government short-term bond market, the Russian government declared economical default, and literally in a few days the ruble devalued by 4 times, and the government of Sergei Kiriyenko was dismissed. In the autumn of 1998, the head of the presidential administration, Valentin Yumashev, in connection with Yeltsin's health problems and his unpopularity in society, announced a special procedure for the work of the president, which, according to the media, meant the voluntary refusal of the head of state from active participation in the political process, and gave rise to many rumors about the imminent resignation of Boris Yeltsin. Already at the beginning of 1999, one of the most notorious corruption scandals in modern Russia broke out, the participants of which were the closest circle of the Russian president, members of his family, and Boris Yeltsin himself. By decree of the Russian president, Prosecutor General Yuri Skuratov, who initiated the criminal case, was soon removed from office. Against the backdrop of the emerging corruption scandal, the leaders of the communist and democratic opposition tried to impeach Boris Yeltsin, but due to disagreements among the opposition, it was not possible to impeach the president. The final nail in the coffin of the Yeltsin regime was the invasion of Chechen militants into the territory of Dagestan, which became the beginning of the Second Chechen War. The economic crisis, an attempt of impeachment, the renewed armed conflict in the Caucasus, and the constantly deteriorating state of health forced Yeltsin on December 31, 1999 to announce his early resignation and the appointment of Prime Minister Vladimir Putin as acting president.
Сегодня, в последний день уходящего века, я ухожу в отставку. В соответствии с Конституцией, уходя в отставку, я подписал указ о возложении обязанностей президента России на председателя правительства Владимира Владимировича Путина.
And we will find out right now whether the new leader of Russia will be able to win the upcoming presidential elections and correct the mistakes of his predecessor. And before we start, I would like to say thank you to everyone who liked this video and subscribed to my channel. Well, now let's begin. After being appointed acting president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin began an active campaign to win the upcoming presidential elections in March 2000. To increase his popularity among the country's population, President Putin went to the Caucasus to take part in planning the operation to attack Grozny. On January 6, the federal troops launched a full-scale offensive with the aim of capturing cities such as Gudermez, Shally, and other strategically important settlements, which in turn would encircle Grozny and begin the assault on the Chechen capital. On January 8th, the assault on Grozny began. After 25 hours of a massive assault, artillery shelling and bloody street battles, federal troops managed to oust the enemy army from Grozny. And already on January 9th, the Russian army entered the city. The remnants of the separatist army after the fall of Grozny were forced to retreat to the Georgian border, where they were soon destroyed under the pressure of the advancing Russian army. On January 11th, federal troops managed to establish control over the entire territory of the Chechen Republic. However, the remnants of the separatist army were able to hide in the mountainous regions. And for several more years, armed clashes will occur in the region between partisan detachments and units of the Russian army. In any case, after the end of the active phase of hostilities and the establishment of full control over the territory of Chechnya, Vladimir Putin's ratings increased significantly, and in the first round of the presidential elections, the current head of the state received 52% of the votes, which ensured his victory in the first round of voting. At his inauguration, Vladimir Putin promised the people of Russia to restore order in the country, defending the values of freedom and democracy. However, Vladimir Putin's reign began extremely unsuccessfully. On August 12th, the Russian submarine Kursk sank during the military training. All 118 crew members died during the disaster. Due to the extremely ambiguous reaction of the authorities and negative reports in the media, the population's attitude towards the new president has significantly worsened. This was also influenced by the increasing number of terrorist attacks throughout Russia. The media not controlled by Putin criticized the president's actions, strengthening opposition sentiments in society. Pressure from the oligarchs and the media controlled by them forced Putin to begin a fight against disloyal oligarchs who had serious influence on public policy during Yeltsin's reign. One of the most powerful oligarchs in Russia was Boris Berezovsky, who owned several large automobile-related companies and also had large stakes in the country's resource-extracting enterprises. But most importantly, Boris Berezovsky actually owned the main television channel in Russia, which aired reports criticizing the current president of the country. In the autumn of 2000, several criminal cases were opened against Boris Berezovsky, in which the oligarch was accused of fraud, money laundering, and an attempt to forcibly seize power. After this, Boris Berezovsky fled from Russia to London, and all the oligarch's assets came under state control. Another, no less influential oligarch was Vladimir Gosinski, who owned serious banking assets and his own media, where he criticized the current government. On June 13, 2000, Gosinski was arrested on charges of fraud on an especially large scale and was placed in prison. And on June 16th, he was released on his own recognizance. On July 20th, Gosinski signed an agreement under which he sold all his assets to Gazprom for $773 million. On July 26th, the case against the businessman was closed and he left Russia. One of the largest television channels in the country, called NTV, came under the control of Gazprom. The channel's new management intended to fire journalists who had previously criticized President Putin and exclude any future criticism of the Kremlin. This event received wide attention among the population of the country, and on March 31, 2001, a rally was held in Pushkin Square in defense of the television company. The rally was attended mainly by members of the liberal opposition, from parties such as the Union of Right Forces and Yabloko. However, protests by thousands of people led nowhere, and soon the state took full control over the TV channel, and all opposition journalists were either fired or left of their own free will. After Gazprom took over the news channel of Boris Berezovsky and Vladimir Gosinski, the government effectively established full control over the largest media outlets in Russia. Control over the media and the elimination of the country's most influential oligarchs demonstrated to other big business owners Vladimir Putin's intention to establish control over big business in Russia, and because of that, most oligarchs decided to make a deal with the government government in order to preserve their business. And we will find out what awaits Russia in the future in the next video. Like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting Hoi 4 videos. Have a nice day, see you soon guys.